After bursting onto the music scene in 1991 with her multi-million-selling album Little Earthquakes, Tori Amos consolidated her position as one of the most compelling female singer-songwriters of recent times with the hit singles Crucify, Cornflake Girl and Pretty Good Year. Following a 2-year gap since the release of her last CD, Tori is set to return to the charts with her 9th studio album, The Beekeeper. The album's 19 tracks explore issues ranging from sex to politics to religion, and I'm delighted to welcome Tori Amos into the studio. Hi.
Hey, Mariella.
Tori, tell me first of all, what was the inspiration behind the album?
Well, I was in North Cornwall, coming back from the American leg of the last tour. And the truth is, going from L.A. to North Cornwall is about as far as you can get. And so, as I was looking out over the Atlantic, I started to hear things on the news about what was going on in the elections in the States. And being an American over here is quite a different experience. You begin to see how we're perceived in the world in a different way.
Was it quite a shock?
It's always a painful shock, I think, when you are hearing leaders professing ideologies that sound right, like freedom and democracy and those kinds of things, and Jesus' teachings, which, let's face it, even if you're not Christian, they're pretty good teachings.
Yeah, they make sense.
Yeah. And so when they were harnessing these parables from the Bible and little sound bites, the minister's daughter and me just stood up and said, I don't think so. So if they're going to be undressing these ideas and manipulating them, then we need to take these seeds and plant them, not in the garden of original sin, but as Sophia, God's mother, would say, in the garden of original sensuality.
Sensuality, what a lovely word, lovely term. Now, speaking of sensuality, why did you decide to call the album The Beekeeper? It's quite a sort of fecund title.
Well, I was making my way to the gardens in North Cornwall, and I just started to see this relationship between these female cute worker bees and the organs of the flowers. And as I did some research, I began to see that there was this win-win relationship between bee and nature. So that little worker bee comes and joins with the organ, takes the nectar and does a little sprinkle, and the garden propagates, and the worker bee goes to her girlfriends, does her dance, and doesn't hide where the organs are, but tells them. How generous. And I really thought, wow, honey gets made, everybody wins. It's a win-win. And it's unfortunate that you see some of our leaders thinking that to win, someone has to lose.
And this is obviously an album that you feel very personally involved in, because aside from writing the songs and performing the songs, you also produced the album. Why was that?
I like delegating. And I think being a good producer is about bringing in great people who are good at what they do and being able to say, here, this is what you're good at. This is your gold. I look to you to make this decision. But please don't tell me what color shoes to put on. You know?
Speaking of colours, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the songs on the album. The Power of Orange Knickers is obviously not about the power of orange knickers, or is it, to be taken literally?
Wow. You know, I always have a pair in my bag, especially when I'm going to that meeting with the lawyers, when they're telling me, you know, what the suits are demanding from me. I always feel like I've secretly power-dressed in a way that they have no idea. I mean, let's think about it. The Orange Revolution, you know, Guantanamo Bay, orange has been there. The Orange Men. I was fascinated by the idea of Damien Rice being Irish, as he knows about terrorists.
And he performed with you on this track, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And was that a marvellous experience?
Oh, yeah. Heaven. He really understood the track, and he understood that we needed to strip the idea of what a terrorist is so that, you know, the people, when they look at their picture of what a terrorist is, it's not necessarily a guy in a turban or a guy in an army uniform. And in that way, for example, my little girl came in and said, Mommy, what's the terrorist? Because she was hearing it on the news. And I tried to explain it, and I was having a really hard time. And she looked at me finally and she said, "You mean it's like a bully, like Jack on the playground?" And I went, "Yeah." So now Jack the terrorist gets mentioned a lot around the house.
Out of the mouths of children. And finally, we're about to hear one of the songs from the album, Sweet the Sting. Can you tell me a little bit about that track?
Husband got me an organ for Christmas, which magically found its way into the piano room. And that's very cheeky because people bringing things into my piano room, I mean, that's like my underwear drawer.
You don't sneak things in there.
No, you don't. And so, as I fell in love with this Hammond B3 organ, the song started to change. And the piano wasn't jealous. It wasn't competitive, which I was quite proud of her. And shocked, because she's very territorial.
I can imagine. Did you give her a little polish in thanks?
Well, you know, I always say anytime I can introduce you to a hot organ, I'll do my best. So Sweet the Sting began to become this creature that I guess was influenced by those old Stevie Wonder records and Marvin Gaye records I would listen to when I was a little girl. And, you know, maybe I filed that away somewhere, as you do in your brain, and I just started to play this instrument. And I didn't see myself as this 5-foot whatever redheaded person. I thought I was the soulful swinging sister.
Well, let's hear Tori Amos as the soulful swinging sister with Sweet the Sting.